Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Trade and Investment, Senator Cormann. As the Senator will be aware, in the 2010 Blue Book prepared for the potential incoming coalition government, the Treasury warned that the potential benefits of free trade agreements under negotiations have been oversold and the negatives largely ignored. The Treasury then cautioned that the coalition should avoid bindings that limit future domestic policy flexibility and exercise caution in accepting investor-state dispute settlements, commonly known as ISDS provisions. The Treasury has clearly issued a red flag to the government on free trade agreements, and it is warned not to risk our national sovereignty. Why is the government going against Treasury advice by including ISDS provisions in the TPPA and Korean Free Trade Agreement? And what safeguards are you putting in place to limit future litigation against the Australian people for simply creating legislation on their behalf?
Minister representing the Minister for Trade and Industry, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I thank Senator Whish-Wilson for that question. The first point I would make is that I completely reject the assertion that we're going against Treasury advice. This government has got a very simple commitment. Our commitment is to pursue policies that strengthen our economy and create jobs. And to the extent that entering into free trade agreements helps us strengthen our economy and create jobs, we will pursue them. To the extent that it doesn't, we won't. And that is a very, very simple equation. Now, I would just make the more general observation. Not having free trade agreements in place, where the nations that we compete with do, actually puts us at a serious disadvantage. If I can just take the free trade agreement that we agreed on with Korea last week as an example. The United States of America, who we compete with in that market, in particular in relation to agricultural products, was taking significant market share away from Australian farmers. Why? Because they were able to access that market at much superior conditions to Australian farmers.
Order.
So the point.
Order, Senator Cormann. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Mr. President, point of relevance. I clearly ask what safeguards Senator Cormann was putting in place to limit future litigation against the Australian people.
Order. The question was broader than that. The minister is addressing the question. The minister still has 55 seconds remaining. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is actually a very important issue, and it is one that does need to be debated and argued across the Australian community in a responsible fashion, which is why I'm actually going out of my way to give you a very genuine answer, Senator Whish-Wilson. And the point here is that we will only pursue free trade agreements that are in the national interest. We will only pursue free trade agreements that help us strengthen our economy and create jobs. In relation to investor-state dispute settlement clauses, what we have said very clearly, what Minister Robb has said very clearly, who achieved outstanding success with Korea the other week, success that the previous government wasn't able to achieve over 6 years in government. What we have said is that we will only consider inclusion of those sorts of clauses on a case-by-case basis, where, as part of an overall package, we consider the overall package to be in the national interest.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
Mr. President, in relation to that last point made by Senator Cormann, given that there's ample evidence that carve-outs and exceptions fail to limit litigation under ISDS clauses in previous trade agreements, can the government commit today to not trading away low-cost medicines for Australian people or any aspect of the pharmaceutical benefit scheme through the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The government has been very clear that we will not do anything that puts at risk the strength and the integrity of the pharmaceutical benefits system. So, the Senator can be quite assured that that is one of the issues that is always top of mind for this government.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the Senator would be aware, under the North American Free Trade Agreement, the multinational corporation ARCHER DANIELS Midland, known as ADM, successfully sued Mexico under ISDS provisions for legislation enacted by the Mexican Parliament. Given that ADM bid for Graincorp was recently rejected under a national interest test, can Minister rule out whether, under ISDS provisions, foreign investors could sue over future national interest test outcomes or changes to our foreign investment framework?
Order. 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 The Minister. Order. 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 The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I mean, I would invite you to reflect on the question that was just asked, because I believe that Senator Whish-Wilson is actually asking me for a legal opinion, which I don't think is the appropriate thing to ask me to do. But let me just make the general point again. Let me just make the general...
Order, Senator Cormann. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Order. Mr. President, point of clarification on relevance. I wasn't asking for a legal opinion. Those words were not mentioned. I was asking the minister, and this is certainly something that
Senator Whish-Wilson,
Senator Heffernan and the Nationals would be very interested in knowing the answer to this question.
Order. There's no point of order. I listened very closely to the question. The minister can address that question in so much as it doesn't go to seeking an opinion. That's part of the standing orders. I invite the minister, with 43 seconds remaining, to address the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I did actually provide the answer to that question to the extent that I can assist the senator in my initial answer, and that is that the government has clearly stated that we will assess the appropriateness of agreeing to ISDS clauses in relevant free trade agreements on a case-by-case basis based on our judgment of Australia's national interest.
Senator